All right, this is a Brock Purdy update in many different forms. John Lynch just talked on KMBR about Purdy and the organizational decision that the 49ers are going to have to make this week regarding what role he's going to play, starting quarterback, backup quarterback, emergency quarterback against the Cardinals on Sunday. And two, the offensive line obviously pertains to Purdy and Mac Jones. And at least when we consider the offseason narratives that I had to deal with on an almost daily basis running this channel in the comment section, this is some staggering statistical information exiting the first two games. The 49ers offensive line, in terms of pass protection, is ranked number 3 in the entire NFL over the course of the first 2 weeks. And they played the Seattle Seahawks defense that so far has ranked as an excellent pass rushing group. The way that they can generate pressure without blitzing, they've proven to be monstrous up front. I think Seattle's going to be a problem for everybody that they play this year. It's something that we speculated on, that we hinted at, that Jaron Reed hinted at when he said the Seahawks could be the top defense in the NFL during training camp. And I know that we talked about that a lot entering that game. Well, 49ers pass protection in money downs at clutch situations held up against the Seahawks. And then, boy, did they ever hold up against a solid Saints defensive front that actually gave the Arizona Cardinals some trouble in week 1. Cam Jordan, Curtis Granderson, Carl Granderson, sorry. Curtis Granderson's a baseball player. I always confuse those two names. Same initials, CG. Carl Granderson, Cam Jordan, the two defensive ends who were bringing in some heat against the Arizona Cardinals, really weren't able to do much against the 49ers. So this right here, it's coming from two different sources. You can look at the pass protection composite rankings right up on the screen. You can see the 49ers here ranked at number 3. The composite is between, well, it's actually 3 different sources on this one. So it's PFF, Sports Information Systems, which is SIS, and ESPN. Sports Information Systems is going to measure the amount of missed blocks and score a team accordingly. As you can see, the 49ers have an 83 there. Not as good as Arizona. They've got a 98 in terms of their missed blocks, which is charted from tape. The 49ers obviously do get to play the Cardinals on Sunday. 49ers do score better than Arizona in PFF grade. What PFF will do is take a look at every single offensive lineman on every single snap and then grade him based on how he executes what they think the task is. Now, this is where it could get subjective, and this is where PFF can be wrong. I know they were wrong in at least one play when it came to grading the 49ers too negatively on Sunday. That was on the sack that turned into a fumble against Colton McKivitz. Now, the problem is that Colton McKivitz actually did his job on that play. He blocked for a good 3+ seconds. But Mac Jones just held on to the ball too long because Kyle Shanahan said that he didn't like the play call. So Shanahan blamed himself and by extension also blamed Mac Jones for not getting rid of the football sooner. PFF charged that strip sack as a pressure and a sack to Colton McKivitz, even though anybody that you talk to will say that that one was actually on the play caller and the QB. So that's where PFF's methodology can err, but that's also why we're taking a look at 3 different sources in this O-line ranking. And even with that blemish, PFF has the 49ers as the second highest ranked pass protection in the NFL, behind only the Denver Broncos. And then finally, there's pass block win rate by ESPN. 49ers not as good here, 70, definitely not bad, definitely above average, but 70 for pass block win rate, which is going to measure the prevalence of the 49ers successfully holding their blocks for 2.5 seconds or more. So we got 3 different metrics. The composite score of all 3 is 85 for the 49ers. They are a little bit ahead of Jacksonville, who's coming in 2 weeks, and a little bit behind Arizona, who's coming into Levi Stadium this week. So nice little sandwich effect here for the 49ers as they enter this opening 2-game homestand. They faced Denver over the course of the preseason. And you know what? The fact that the 49ers defense looked so good against the Denver first-team offense, it was like the 49ers second-team defense, right, at the start of that game in the preseason. maybe that was a little foreshadowing for us that this 49ers defense would be better than expected to begin this 2025 season. I'll talk about the defense later, but just a little side note as we look at this and we see where the Broncos are in terms of their offensive line. If you want comparison for the 49ers, last year they were about number 16. They were middle of the pack. The 49ers offensive line, ironically, and this is credit to Brock Purdy and the 49ers weapons and their ability to generate separation. The 49ers O-line actually ranked better in 2024. It was middle of the pack versus where they were in 2023 when they were the number one offense in football and went to the Super Bowl. They were in the 20s that year. The 2022 season saw the 49ers O-line somewhere between 10 and 15. I forgot exactly where, but that was the last time they were firmly above average before the start to this season. People often get the 49ers offensive line wrong when they're discussing it online. They think it's some kind of major glaring weakness that it just completely sticks out versus the rest of the league. The truth of the matter is that O-line play is behind D-line play in general. That's why it's so hard to find a quality offensive lineman on the market. That's why you have to use a top 5 draft pick to get one of these premier tackles. Everybody is scrounging right now around football to try to field a decent offensive line. It's just really, really hard to do so given the market inefficiencies, given the fact that so much premier talent is on the defensive side of the ball. But so you have to grade against other teams. You have to grade relative to the rest of the league. And this much is a fact through two games. PFF is going to look at every individual offensive lineman. The 5 starters the 49ers have set up for this game on Sunday against Arizona, which now includes the rookie Connor Colby at left guard. All 5 of those guys are grading in the top 10 of their respective positions at this very moment through 2 weeks through PFF grade. All 5 of those 49ers starters. So whether it be Trent Williams, who's right at around number 10 amongst left tackles right now, Colton McKivitz, who's number 2 or 3, like in the top 5 of right tackles, Connor Colby, who's in the top 10 of left guards, or Dominic Puni, who is number 6 or maybe even number 5. It's hard because they clump all the guards together, so I have to differentiate that way. But he's definitely in the top 10 of right guards, or Jake Brendel, who's number 2 amongst all centers. Every single 49ers offensive lineman has gotten off to a good start this season. It's massive, right, for San Francisco. The problem last year was that even though the offensive line got a little bit better, the 49ers tanked in terms of separation because all the receivers got hurt. They didn't have Brandon Ayuk. We know how disastrous that was. They were number 32 in separation, and that caused Brock Purdy to not have anywhere to throw, especially many times it didn't happen on time. Offensive line would have to hold its blocks for longer. Purdy had to start playing hero ball. He said he did too much. The offense just wasn't clicking the same way that it was in 2023, because even though they weren't blocking as well in 2023, they were getting separation, and Purdy could get rid of the football quicker, and they could mask some of those deficiencies. This year, the separation's a little bit better to begin. Ricky Pearsall has emerged. We can talk all about the weapons at a later time, but know that the separation right now through 2 games is number 25. They've improved from 32 to 25. In 2023, it was number 12 or number 13. It was slightly above average in terms of separation. This year, it's still bad, but it's going to get better, presumably, once Ayuk and Kittle and even when Purdy returns too, that can help the explosiveness. It's not going to help the separation for the 49ers, but there are pathways to improved performance in terms of average separation. But it still has struggled a little bit, and that has put a firm pressure on the offensive line to effectively block, to be one of the better units in football. And so far, through 2 games, they have absolutely answered the bell. Now, how is Connor Colby going to do at that left guard position for the 49ers over a longer stretch of time? I think that's one of the big questions that the 49ers are, and Connor Colby himself, are going to have to answer here over the course of the next few weeks. Ben Bartch is on injured reserve, so he's going to miss at least 4 games. If Colby continues to play at the level that we saw from New Orleans, he can take that starting job. I think that much is obvious. Colby surprised the 49ers when he came in because he seemed more advanced at the NFL level as a pass blocker versus where he was as a run blocker. And funny enough, that seems to be where the 49ers offensive line is right now, performance-wise. They're only averaging 3.3 yards per carry as a run game. So on the very surface, somebody can say, if they're not looking into this more deeply, they can say, well, they've been awesome pass blocking, but this is a little bit of an inversion. What about the run blocking? How come it's only 3.3 yards per carry? And, as is the case with everything in football, there are so many complicated factors that go into it. The 5 offensive linemen are not the only ones run blocking for the 49ers. George Kittle is one of the most important run blocking pieces in the game, and he's a tight end. He's not one of the 5 offensive linemen. Kyle Juszczyk is one of the most important run blocking pieces in the game, and he's a fullback. Both of those guys were out by the end of the game against the Saints. The 49ers have had some key blocking apparatus injuries for the run game specifically. They have also faced opponents who are doing everything they can to stop the run. And they're mixing 2 different defensive strategies, and I think so far effectively to stop the run. But John Lynch just said it on KMBR. The Saints came up, loaded the box, dared us to throw, so we threw 39 times with our backup quarterback with Mac Jones. And so far, the throwing has been efficient for the 49ers. The pass protection has been efficient, but the run game hasn't primarily because of what the 49ers have faced defensively. As this season progresses, you're going to see defenses have to adapt to the fact that the 49ers are successfully passing the ball against them. And that's when more running room should open up. We saw 5- and 6-man fronts against the Seahawks and against the New Orleans Saints, combined with 2 shell defenses, which are 2 safeties 11 yards behind the line of scrimmage, ready to pounce on any potential explosive runs, ready to stymie something that could rip off 15 to 30 yards or even more downfield. There have been an unusual amount of resources dedicated to stopping the 49ers run game over weeks 1 and 2. And therefore, you see the results be what they are for San Francisco right now, just a little bit over 3 yards per carry. But just like, I'll say the same thing with the pass protection numbers right here. It is still a small sample size. This is just an encouraging start. We shouldn't read all that more into it. You could see that the notes down at the bottom actually explain this the way that I told you guys. PFF grade is 40%, blown block percentage is 40%, and pass block win rate is actually only worth 20% of the final composite. Credit to Ben Baldwin for putting all this together, but it still is a small sample size. We'll check in on this from a week-to-week basis, and it's a small sample size from the angle of pass protection, and it's still a small sample size from the angle of running production. And the 49ers, I'm sure, are going to see these things balance out a little bit. I think the run blocking will probably, and the run results especially, because can't really blame it on blocking if there are other extenuating factors like too many men to block, stacking the box. But I'm sure that the run production is going to go up. This is a team that's going to average more than 3.3 yards per carry. And I would suspect that they're not the number 3 pass blocking team in the NFL over the course of the long run. But do I think they could be in the top 10? Absolutely. Would the top 10 be good enough? Hell yes, especially if the 49ers are running the football to take some pressure off their pass protection. We are just observing trends at the start of this season through the data that we have. And we're saying, is this alarming? Is this encouraging for the 49ers? Well, there have been way more encouraging trends than alarming ones for San Francisco so far. And perhaps the most encouraging one is how well they have pass protected through a couple games. I think somebody like Trent Williams is only going to get better. Week 1 was tough for him. I thought that the injury that he suffered during that game, the bone bruise, did affect him. Wasn't his best game. Also playing against the really good Seattle front. He bounced back in week 2 to not give up a single pressure, even though on his way to the stadium that day, he wasn't expecting to play. But the competitive juices started flowing. Trent got out there. Trent played a hell of a game. Clean sheet for him. Clean sheet for Connor Colby, over 36 snaps at left guard. Again, Dominic Puni, I don't think is 100% right now, but he's playing at a top 10 level at his position. And Colton McKivitz is playing absolutely elite football as we speak. That's the one that people were most wrong about. Now, Brendel's ranked as number 2 center in PFF grade right now. And center's really, really complex. And I think that people were not wise to bury Jake Brendel last season when he was coming off of an off season that was marred by knee tendonitis. I think it's clear that Jake is a lot healthier now. And there are a lot of, let's call it screenshot or film warriors online. And yes, I use that in a negative fashion, but people who don't really understand what the 49ers are trying to do. And I'm not going to even pretend that I understand what they're trying to do on a lot of these clips. Like, you actually have to be in the meeting room with Shanahan and Chris Furster and the offensive linemen and Purdy to know the goals of some of these plays. But they'll look at something and they'll accuse Jake Brendel or Colton McKivitz of doing something wrong, when in fact they don't actually know the exact assignment on that play. And that's where some of the PFF grading can actually go wrong as well. That's why we composite the 3 metrics together, and why the correlation between the 3 that shows the 49ers as a good pass blocking apparatus so far this year is so important to make. You can't just look at one. But people will take plays completely out of the context of their assignment for the 49ers offensive line, and then have that spread virally over the internet, and then guys get trashed, and it's not fair when they get trashed. At center especially, this is a big danger, because center is in charge of so much that isn't actually physically delivered on the play. It's a cerebral position. The center is pointing out safety rotations. The center is setting protections for the line of scrimmage. He's communicating to the linemen while the quarterback is communicating to the skill position players. And then there's got to be an interplay of communication, nonverbal, between the center and the QB. So the center is one of the coaches on the field. That's what Jake Brendel does. John Feliciano, when he was on this channel a couple weeks ago, talked about how the center for the 49ers, Brendel, he did not envy his job. He said, Jake, I would have been in hell. That's what John Feliciano said if he had to do what Jake did at that center position. And John has started at center before. There's a lot put on the center's plate in this offense. It helps the quarterback play fast. It helps the quarterback play decisive. And we've seen Jake Brendel do a very good job in that cerebral role, especially this season for the 49ers. I mean, this is a Pro Bowl alternate a couple years ago. And I thought that his play had worsened 2022 to 2023 to 2024, with a plausible explanation, though, for the decline. And that's because he was missing significant time. Like, once every few practices, he would have to sit out due to knee tendonitis in the 2024 offseason. That was no longer an issue in 2025. It seems that Jake Brendel was able to heal that knee, get that taken care of, and I think that it's being reflected in his play. As far as somebody like Colton McKivitz goes, we saw last year, we saw 2023. In 2023, he was one of the worst pass blocking tackles in the NFL. In 2024, he improved from one of the worst to slightly above average. To begin 2025, if PFF fixes the pressure they charge Colton McKivitz on that Mac Jones play, he's given up only one legitimate pressure against Seattle this season. He had to be ranked as the number 2 pass blocking offensive tackle in all of football, left or right side. So for those who doubt it, like Colton McKivitz's ability to improve, nobody is saying that he's going to stay as the number 2 blocking tackle throughout this entire season, although he has a chance to. Obviously, he's going to have to go out there and show us what he can do on film. But nobody's saying it's a slam dunk that he stays that high. But I can guarantee you that none of the naysayers said that he'd be at this point through 2 games. They thought that he'd be below average at best. But Colton McKivitz has been elite in terms of pass protection through 2 games. So this is obviously huge news for Purdy and company. Mac Jones, I would think that I'm still erring toward Mac starting on Sunday, but there are many possibilities here. Purdy could line up as the QB2, although I think that's the least likely possibility of the three. The three playing possibilities. There's obviously the fourth non-playing possibility for Brock Purdy, but emergency third quarterback is also on the table for this week. An emergency third QB would be somebody who's dressed but wouldn't play unless the two guys in front of him got hurt. So that's Mac Jones and Adrian Martinez at the number 2. The reason this option is in the 49ers pocket is because of the rule that was passed after their NFC Championship game debacle against the Philadelphia Eagles in that 2022 season. The third quarterback rule. It was in effect already last year, but the third quarterback has to be on the 53-man roster. So when Purdy is fully healthy and ready to go and Mac Jones is his backup, Adrian Martinez cannot be the emergency third quarterback because he's on the practice squad. However, this could be a different situation for San Francisco because Brock Purdy's on the 53. Theoretically, the 49ers could start Mac Jones. That's cut and dry off the 53. Elevate Adrian Martinez, so he's in uniform, eligible to play at any time coming off the practice squad. And then they could have Brock Purdy up and dressed as the emergency third quarterback. So only break the glass in case of emergency. So that, depending on where Brock is with the toe, that's something that the 49ers will decide organizationally here over the course of the next couple days. The decision is based on Purdy and Purdy alone. This is not, okay, well, we feel comfortable enough with Mac, like he earned a second start. No, that's not it. Purdy is one of the best quarterbacks in the game. As soon as the 49ers feel that he is ready to go, can protect himself, and can perform at a level high enough to justify him playing, he will play. That has nothing to do with Mac Jones. In the event that Purdy can't play, that's why Mac Jones is here. You feel good about your backup in the event that Purdy doesn't pass the criteria that I just listed. So that's the quarterback update for the 49ers. Now we're going to play what John Feliciano said about that center position. Mike was able to dig it up. Let's listen in to John and Jake Brendel's job. In Kyle's system on the center, I know you played a few snaps, but you were mainly a guard. I think it might have been at the end of the games at center. So Brendel's handling that for the 49ers. What exactly, is the center? He doesn't have a headset, but he gets the play call, and then is he communicating with the linemen?
Everybody, really.
And how's he doing that? Is he yelling stuff out, or is it nonverbal from the center?
No, yeah, he's yelling. He has a lot. Jake's job is so hard, and I'm so happy I was able to play guard in this system and not center. Like it's mentally torture. There's so much that he has to know and remember. And Jake has been in this system for a long time, so it's very like secondhand for him. But especially my first year, there were so many times where I'm like, Jake, you gotta teach me like how are we getting this point so early? Like what are we looking at here? And especially coming from a different system with different verbiages, like it was so hard. It was hard to learn the system, and that center job is real tough.
As a lineman, when the center is barking at the line, he's crouched down. He's going to snap the ball. The quarterback is also always saying something. So do you just have to kind of, in this system, do you filter out what Brock is saying and you're paying attention to Jake?
Well, Jake's usually making the call as we're getting to the line. So right before Brock says anything. And that's, great work by Jake. I mean, he's able to make a call real early before the cadence even happens.
Okay, so they have to, because they don't want to cross cross wires there. You have to.
Yeah, but it does happen all the time, especially if the play clock's getting down, or if it's a play that we need to snap it fast, or like if Brock sees like a corner not on a receiver or something, or someone like getting lined up. So there's times where you gotta listen to both, but you try not to.
So it's John Feliciano on the complexities of playing center for the 49ers. I forgot how in-depth he went, and we talked about the communication, and Purdy's barking out his orders, and the center has to bark out his orders, and sometimes you don't have a lot of time on the play clock, so both have to happen at the same time. And that's before you even get to the physical challenges of playing. There's a lot of strong interior defensive linemen in this league now that are going to test that center's anchor. And the fact that the 49ers have Brendel playing at a top 2 level, according to that PFF grade, I mean, we've watched the tape. He's looked good. And PFF is going to have its own charting, and I think that it's fair at this point. I mean, the 49ers have created especially on money downs, they have been the NFL's top team on 3rd and 4th down so far through 2 games. The only way that you're winning on money downs, which are overwhelmingly passing situations, the only way that you're winning is if you're protecting on those money downs. And, this goes back to this in preseason, the 49ers converted a couple of 3rd and 20s, like 3rd and really long plays. And the protection was there. Do you guys remember? I think it wasn't a 3rd and 20. It might have been a 3rd and 14 against the Raiders. Brock Purdy was in there. Did he hit Gage? Was it Russell Gage that he hit on a little inbreaker? No, it was Pearsall. He hit Ricky Pearsall. And Colton McKivitz had to fend off Max Crosby. And a lot of people were like, whoa, if that throw would have come out 0.2 of a second later, Crosby would have gotten him. It's like, yeah, it's hard to block on 3rd and long because the defensive end can pin his ears back and rush at the quarterback with absolutely reckless abandon. But the point is that he didn't get there 0.2 seconds earlier. The point is that Colton McKivitz was able to force him to run a wide enough hoop to give Brock Purdy just enough time to step up and hit Ricky Pearsall to convert the 3rd and 14. And I thought that, especially in retrospect now, we could view that as a little bit of foreshadowing regarding the 49ers pass game. Again, they are the top efficiency team on 3rd and 4th down. Now, they're not the top efficiency team on 1st and 2nd down. They're number 25 DVOA on 1st down. They're number 20 DVOA on 2nd down. What does that tell us? Well, it tells us that they're not having the success probably running the ball early in these drives or early in the progression of these drives in the down and distance order that they would like to have. They are then bailing themselves out with good passing 3rd down performance. So when the chips are down, they're protecting well, and both quarterbacks, Purdy in week 1 and Mac Jones in week 2, are getting the job done. If you want to make that as sustainable as possible, in fact, if you want to improve that performance, so it's amazing that they're performing this way on 3rd down right now, despite the fact that the 1st and 2nd downs are so inefficient. But the way that you improve that is to make 3rd down more manageable. So instead of facing 3rd and 8, 3rd and 6 to 3rd and 8, you want to face 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, 2nd and 6, 4 yards on 1st down, a few more yards on 2nd down, set up the 3rd and short. You create leverage offensively. That needs to happen, and it's overly simplistic. You can't just say they need to establish the run. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Establishing the run when the other team is stacking 6 on the line of scrimmage is something that just won't happen consistently. Sometimes you establish it by throwing. You're right. You don't just hand the ball off and run into a brick wall. You establish it by throwing. You have the patience to wait for defenses to make adjustments away from the run game because you're throwing with success. And that can sometimes take a few games over the course of the season. It's not a one-game thing. You're play calling for the whole year. It's a marathon that you run as a sprint. It is not just a one-game sprint. And then stuff starts to open up. Balance is what establishes efficiency. It shouldn't be about just taking your head and banging it up against the wall, trying to run 50 times a game because you think that you're being tough doing that. You think that that's somehow effective. You do need to run sometimes, even when the front is not an advantageous one to run against, because you have to keep the possibility of a run in the defense's mind so they can't just pin their ears back and go after your quarterback on every single drop back. So that's, something that you do have to do, but you can't repeat the run to the extent that it's so inefficient that it grounds your offense because the defense is playing so aggressively against it up front. Balance is overarching balance, zooming out and looking at run pass balance and deciding what to call based on what the defense is showing. That is always going to be the overarching goal, philosophy, rule of the Shanahan offense. And we're only 2 games into this thing, so it's way too early. Again, for the run game, it is way too early to judge whether or not this is going to be a good run game because we only have that sample of how defenses are playing the 49ers right now. And that sample is they're taking away the run. The 49ers think they're close to busting a few big runs, even despite the fact that they're seeing some of these 2-shell safeties and they're seeing some of these aggressive odd man fronts. They think they're close, and they think that maybe just a little more hesitation in the defense's mind because the 49ers have passed so effectively over the first 2 weeks. They think that might be the trick that allows them to bust a few of these runs. And maybe we start to see it at home against the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday. So that's where San Francisco is. Hope you like the O-line update. There's John Feliciano. We're going to take him off the screen. We're going to give you guys the look at this one more time. I also wanted to give you a defensive update. This is how often the 49ers are blitzing. You can find them right in the middle. 70% of the time they're not blitzing. 30% of the time they are blitzing. That 30% blitz rate is about 10 points higher, maybe a little bit more than last year. Last year, the 49ers were blitzing down at the bottom of the league. This year, Robert Saleh has not only brought one rush, that's 23.3% of the time right here. He's also brought two rushers for the 49ers, 6.7% of the time to round out to 30%. And as you can see, that 6.7% bringing 2 rushers is definitely in the top half of the league. Like there are teams that blitz like crazy, like Steve Spagnuolo has blitzed 2 rushers 30% of the time. Saleh's never going to be that. He has more confidence of the 49ers rush with 4 men. But like a team like the New York Giants here, they're number 4 in this overall blitz rate, but it's mainly with 1 blitzer. They're only blitzing 5.7% of the time with 2. 49ers are further down this list. They're bringing 2 or more often than a team like the New York Giants. And I think we've seen it a lot with dual linebacker blitzes for the 49ers, both Warner and D. Winters. We've seen Upton Stout coming in on some pressure. I mean, they've got guys who they've specifically earmarked as blitzers. Jason Pinnock, the safety, was one of the highest graded blitzing safeties over the past couple of years in the NFL. And that's one of the main reasons why they signed him. Didn't have the greatest coverage scores, but a really, really good blitzer. And it's all part of this fascinating Robert Saleh 2.0 strategy, because this is not what he was doing the first time around as 49ers defensive coordinator. He blitzed near the lowest rate in the league back in the 2017 to 2020 seasons. Blitzed a little bit more in 2020 because that's when that 49ers defense was leaking some oil up front with those injuries, so he needed to generate more pressure. But this is not because they're hurt. I get that they might be weaker than 2019 at the defensive tackle position. Guys are still developing there, so Saleh needs to blitz more because of that. But I think that also he has evolved as a head coach with the Jets, right? So when he was a head coach over on the East Coast, Robert Saleh got to understand the big picture of the game at a greater level of detail, right? So big picture level of detail. I know that seems like an oxymoron, but he now, I think, fully grasps and fully gets how to put the pieces together in a way and fashion that he didn't get back in 2020. And so this Robert Saleh 2.0 is bringing new philosophies. It's not the old Seattle style defense anymore. He's bringing new ideas to the table, and you could see it reflected in the 49ers blitz rate, and you could see it reflected in the coverage variances that they are running on the back end. This right here, I always like putting this up right over the course of the week. This is the team tier chart. I know that you've already seen this, but I'm a big picture guy. I know that we zoom in on all the data and we look very close at where the 49ers can be better, what the trends are, but how are they performing overall as a football team? Offense on the Y or on the X-axis, defense on the Y-axis. And the 49ers, I mean, this is a team that is in the upper right. This is where you want to be. They're a tier 2 team right now. They are exceeding expectations. How? Well, I think offensively they're exceeding expectations because we thought they'd be limited at the start of the year with some of those injuries. But I think that the fact that the offensive line is playing the way that it is and that both quarterbacks are delivering the way that they are has allowed the 49ers to be a nice, solid offense to begin the season. Defensively, they're exceeding expectations because the talk of mixing youth with veteran future Hall of Fame pillars has gone as well as anyone could have imagined. Consider the fact that the Rams, they had the formula the 49ers based a lot of their renovation on. The Rams at this time last year were down here defensively. See my cursor down at the bottom of the screen? It took the Rams a good 3+ months to move up to near the top of the league defensively. They had to grow. The 49ers thought they would be ahead of the Rams schedule because they have more A-list pillars than the Rams did in 2024. 49ers have Bosa, Warner, Lenore. You get the picture. I would even say Bryce Huff on the opposite end of Bosa brings some A-list characteristics in those pass rushing situations. So I thought the 49ers might be like maybe where Tampa Bay or Detroit is defensively. I thought they'd be hovering around average. The fact that the defense is yielding positive EPA through only 2 games, to me, is the most encouraging single data point of the 49ers early season. The O-line is really encouraging, don't get me wrong, and I know we're doing a whole video about it right now, but the fact that the defense is above average through 2 games is striking to me because I think they're only going to get better. I still think the same thing I did before the season. You put the defense down here where I expected them to be through a couple weeks. I still thought there would be a surge up, maybe up to the point where the 49ers are now. Now, since the floor of this defense is 0.05 EPA per play, I think that this can go up to where LA is at by the end of the season. And if that ends up being the case, if the 49ers defense is around here where my cursor is moving and the offense gets better with Brandon Ayuk and company returning, all of a sudden you're a tier 1 team. All of a sudden you are a true bona fide Super Bowl contender. So it's to me that this is the start that the 49ers needed from an analytical perspective. And now they move forward to another division game against the Arizona Cardinals. Mike just sent me something that John Lynch said about Alfred Collins. Had his best game as a Niner against the Saints. He's improved so much, and it's exciting. He took 34% of the 49ers defensive snaps in week 2, the second-round pick. Alfred Collins, in week 1, he took only 17% of the snaps. From 9 snaps to 24 snaps. Week 1 to week 2 for Alfred Collins. That is a massive increase in trust. 2x over just 1 week. He had the swim move for the pressure. He had a couple of good plays against the run that I thought really stood out on tape. Just smart heads-up plays, too. The way that he's able to push opposing guards back and create kind of funnel lanes for the other 49ers defensive players has been big for San Francisco. And Alfred should only get better. If there's one weakness right now to this 49ers defense, personnel-wise, it's that they don't have immense talent in the middle with those long defensive tackles that they used to have because I guess you could say Collins is immense talent, but he isn't playing yet at the level that they used to get from somebody like Buckner, for somebody like Armstead. They still have to develop that. So they have that length fitting in the wide 9 to fulfill exactly what Kasarik and Robert Saleh and John Lynch are going to want for that defense. And I think it's coming because I think that Mykel Williams showed some awesome improvement week 1 to week 2. And I think that somebody like Alfred Collins showed some awesome improvement week 1 to week 2. Mykel's going to rush over the inside a lot. Alfred Collins is going to be exclusively on the inside for the 49ers. I think that, even Nick, right now they're trying to pick up some of the slack by rushing Nick Bosa out of the NASCAR package on the inside against guards. And it's fascinating stuff to watch. It is Robert Saleh and Chris Kasarik both in their bags, making this work, having to use some smoke and mirrors early in the season. But obviously, the results are something you cannot complain about if you're a 49ers fan. Upper right here. Now, the special teams hadn't been great yet, but I think it really, really improved following the Pinheiro missed extra point. I thought there was really good punt coverage. Thomas Morstead was one of the reasons they won that game in New Orleans. Their worst punt coverage was after the first punt of the game, but after that they were sound. I still think that The kickoff returns aren't good enough for the 49ers. That's a way to improve the special teams, which is not, by the way, illustrated on this chart. So, and obviously Pinheiro is there to improve the kicking game for San Francisco. So maybe we'll see that special teams rise up to about the number 20 level. That would be, I think, a reasonable goal for the 49ers. And then if the offense and the defense can do what they're charting them to do, this will be a Super Bowl contender. That's what we've learned over the first couple of weeks. And you know what? The 49ers, with the offensive line play that they've gotten so far, with the pass blocking, really creating this inversion, right? Everybody thought, oh, hey, wait, the pass blocking is going to be worse than the run blocking. That's what it always is for the 49ers. But with the inversion that's happened, with that third down success that we've seen, Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, whoever's under center is lined up to do some big things for San Francisco this year. And Sunday, the reason I give it an either or is because we don't know who's going to be starting on Sunday. But that forms the foundational basis of a lot of hope for this 49ers offense. You protect well enough. You build runway for skill position guys to return. Defenses will eventually back off the 5- and 6-man fronts to give you some running room. And then even if defenses compensate for that by coming out of 2-shell, like say they move out of a 5- or 6-man front, but they move a safety up to the line of scrimmage instead of being in 2-shell to try to bring an extra body against the run. That's when those explosive runs can really start happening. That's when Kyle Shanahan can get in his bag, because you can run and expose an over-aggressive safety. And if you expose an over-aggressive safety, there is a whole lot of yardage, a whole lot of real estate on the back end for an explosive drive. As it stands right now, if you've got safeties playing 2-shell behind a 5-man front, well, even if you get through the 5-man front, which is going to be hard, you've got 2 safeties playing 11 yards back, and they're able to basically do what the job is called. They're essentially be able to be safety, right? They're the safety valve for that defense, the safety fence at the back of that defense. The 49ers just need to keep on doing what they're doing, and they will start getting defenses out of their ideal positions, because this pass game is going to need to be stopped. And once that happens, the run game can start delivering the balance that San Francisco has been looking for. Mike sent me something good. He's got a good number. Where's this from, Mike? Let me know, and I'm going to read this. It's 2 numbers for the 49ers. 25.8% is the first one. 25.8%. The 49ers rushing success rate allowed for the 31 designed run snaps they faced this season, when rookie first-round edge defender Mykel Williams has been on the field. Wow. So the 49ers have only allowed rushing success on 26% of the snaps for which Mykel Williams has been on the field. That's a good one. See, a lot of people, they get obsessed with box score watching. Maybe you should tape watch instead. And then these advanced stats, these are reflective of the tape. These are showing us much more in-depth things than just how many yards did somebody gain on a certain play or in a quarter or a game. Look at the success rates. Look at some of the more nuanced things. This is a complicated sport, and it deserves to be analyzed as such. The second number is 66.7%. 66.7%. The 49ers rushing success rate allowed for the 21 designed run snaps they faced this season when Williams has not been on the field. So that's a big delta. It's a really, really, really big delta. 25.8% to 66.7%. This says, while there are a litany of other factors that can impact on and off splits, especially on sample sizes this small, you can feel Williams' presence already. This is from Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports. Go ahead and follow Nate. Does a really good job. Mykel Williams has been setting an edge. He's a problem for tight ends to block. I think that's the main thing. If you have to dedicate an offensive tackle to Mykel Williams, that opens stuff up for Nick Bosa or whoever else is playing the other edge position. The goal is to take premier blockers out of a play. And even if Mykel doesn't win the one-on-one against the premier blocker, the 49ers have won the larger battle because that blocker has been eliminated trying to block Mykel Williams. That's why this is a team sport. You have other defensive linemen in there to help the cause. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Good 45 minutes. I have to head down to practice. We're going to see Brock Purdy today at practice, probably. 49ers fans can hope. And I'll give you the update. It's going to be big news coming from Santa Clara in just a little bit. Everybody hit the subscribe button. Go and check out all the articles on the San Francisco Standard, and we will talk to you very soon.